AGOA, Civil Society Organization Network, initiative de The Foundation for Democracy in Africa, vous donne rendez-vous pour une rencontre sur l'avenir de l'AGOA et les nouvelles dynamiques du commerce entre les États-Unis et l'Afrique.
Some of these issues, so what can we do to assist as civil society, please?
Yeah, so it seems to me that to be expedient, as I think you're saying, is that we need...
Depuis le Rayburn House Office Building à Washington, D.C., participez aux discussions de la 10e conférence annuelle de printemps du réseau AGOA, ce 23 avril 2025, sur l'avenir des échanges commerciaux entre l'Afrique et les États-Unis d'Amérique sous l'administration Trump. Un événement capital sur Capitol Hill, au cœur du pouvoir américain.
Some pretty stark proposals on the table. And we know from just talking to people that it's not, people aren't used to this. You know, they're freaking out about it.
Au programme, renforcer la coopération commerciale et économique entre les États-Unis et l'Afrique sous l'administration Trump, ainsi que dans un contexte de politique America First et de nouvelles surtaxes douanières sur les importations africaines. La question se pose, est-ce la fin de l'AGOA ou une reconstruction stratégique des relations économiques transatlantiques?
My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America and we will give you among the lowest taxes.
En direct de Washington. D'ici, les parties prenantes aux assises de la coopération USA-Afrique sont les invités de Symphorien Katende, journaliste chez Wanjila Connect, le média panafricain basé à Dallas, dans l'État du Texas, aux États-Unis d'Amérique.
Hi, sir. Good to see you. Thanks for handling me.
Thank you, sir. Nice to see you too.
Ne manquez pas ce rendez-vous, mercredi 23 avril 2025 à 16h, heure de Washington. D'ici, 15h à Dallas et 21h à Kinshasa, pour un échange historique sur l'avenir de l'AGOA, selon la vision du président Donald Trump sur les échanges commerciaux.
I think it should be an approach of negotiation. Negotiation. Let us negotiate without fear and to be honest in our purpose for the next.
À Kinshasa, suivez-nous sur Géopolis TV et sur notre chaîne YouTube Wanjila Connect. Activez la cloche de notification pour ne rien manquer et rejoignez le débat.
À la 10e conférence de printemps du réseau de l'AGOA au Capitole à Washington.
Wanjila Connect, connectez l'Afrique au monde.
De partout où vous nous suivez, soyez le bienvenu dans votre nouveau numéro de votre magazine, ici aux États-Unis d'Amérique, à Washington DC, plus précisément au Capitole. Dans cette salle derrière moi se tient la conférence sur l'AGOA. Quel est l'avenir de l'AGOA par rapport à l'administration de Donald Trump qui parle de America First? Comment l'Afrique va se mettre au diapason des États-Unis d'Amérique afin de garder cette coopération par rapport aux échanges internationaux entre l'Afrique et les États-Unis d'Amérique. À l'intérieur se trouvent les différents membres qui sont là pour parler de l'avenir de l'AGOA. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous sommes venus du Texas jusqu'ici à Washington DC pour nous entretenir sur l'avenir des échanges entre les États-Unis d'Amérique et l'Afrique.
Also the data that we are sharing with you. There's a breakdown that shows the goods in trade between the United States and Sub-Saharan Africa over the last 20 years. And it's going to be very important, particularly once we get to the round table, that we understand exactly with AGOA in place, what are the opportunities and what are the challenges as they present itself. We have had AGOA for 20 years under this framework. We need to ensure that the 90 days that we have as a pause can allow us to reflect on data and see what will be the best framework even if we want a renewal of AGOA. And this must be the test for the need to continue the same way. How many jobs are we able to use the benefits of AGOA to create in Africa and in the United States? What level of investment are we seeing coming from the United States into Africa to help facilitate those employments and improve standard of living? What is the level of Africa investment in the United States that also would ensure that the market access is valuable in helping to ensure economic good? I think these are the issues that we must keep our eyes on as we get ready for the round table. We have those data, and I think if we will take a look at them, it would help us. So I would allow us to have the next question, because we would also be moving to the next panel, which will start in about 10 minutes. So do we have any more questions? Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, so I see it. Yeah. You can go ahead. Are you asking?
Oh, you are from virtual? Okay, please. Let's have some virtual. Please.
Question on money asset and competitiveness. First question is, what are the major barriers the average members asset to U.S. market, and how can they be addressed? Number two, how can average economies improve their competitiveness in the U.S. market, particularly the sectors such as agriculture and manufacturing? The last question is, what role can technology play in enhancing our country competitiveness and asset to the U.S. market?
There's a lot of data that's required to answer those questions. And in my experience at the State Department, we're about to ask, which is, what does a good outcome look like? What does a series of working partnerships and measurable outcomes look like? And then third, to think seriously about how civil society organizations, especially businesses and diaspora groups on both sides of the ocean, can drive the partnership formation and development process forward. Those are pretty big challenges. It's something that I've been working on for the last few years.
If we are going to restrict immigration and we don't have the staff to farm table grapes, for example, that we need to make sure the table grapes or agricultural products or furniture or anything coming from Africa, we should maintain those duties at zero so it benefits the African exporter to make our less preferred employment advantageous to the United States. I would see that as two-way trade. Would you agree?
It means that AGOA is a great framework. I think it needs to be renewed, but we can make it better, and we can make it, there are already trade-offs. Just like we say, we want you to use our equipment. Well, that's not a bad deal unless the equipment isn't any good, right? And so if it's better equipment, why not, right? So everybody comes out that. And we're going to need that for that purpose. So it seems to be that as long as people in South Africa or any other African country can turn around to their own people and say, this is a good deal and this is why it is a good deal. And that President Trump could turn around to our people and say, hey, this is a great deal. Here's what we got. And here's how we measure it. Then that's what we're talking about here. And I have to tell you, the concept of outcome evaluation, the virtually unknown sector.
And they be in council. So just see now, In my work in the past 20 years that I deal with many friends and businesses from Africa, one of the major challenges that I came across is access to finance. There are great projects in Africa, but how do we help our friends and partners to get the asset rewards? I think that's something we need to wrestle. Because you can't have a major economic project without financing. So again, we do have some serious relationships with banks. And it also our policy group, as I say, a leading public policy and government relation firm right in DC. So I'm available to help to see how we can actually to come up with solution as far as financing, access to capital, where the funding solves to be project are.
We just committed to the development of vibrant bilateral trade relationships with every single one of the 54 countries in Africa. And you'll notice that I did not say with Africa, because Africa is a big place, and the North is nothing similar to the South. And I'd also like you to consider a question which, certainly in my experience at the State Department, rarely got asked, which is, what does a good outcome look like? Okay, what does a series of working partnerships and measurable outcomes look like? And then third, to think seriously about how civil society organizations, especially businesses and diaspora groups on both sides of the ocean, can drive the partnership formation and development process forward. I mean, those are pretty big challenges. It's something that I've been working on for the last few years, and I'd like to share some of those thoughts with you. Now, as the chairman pointed out, I'm Bob Destro. I had the honor of serving President Trump as the Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, known to most Washington laborers, regulars as DRL, from 2019 to 2021, and as Special Representative for Tibetan issues during 2020 and 2021. So I've seen what happens in the real life when you have predatory relationships, whether they're in the private sector, whether they're in the mining sector, or whether they're in the security sector, as in Tibet. Serving the president in both of those positions has given me, I think, a little bit of a unique perspective on
Lancé en mai 2000, l'AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, incarne l'engagement stratégique des États-Unis à renforcer les relations économiques avec l'Afrique subsaharienne. Ce programme révolutionnaire vise à favoriser le développement par le commerce plutôt que par l'aide. Adopté sous l'administration Clinton et prolongé jusqu'en septembre 2025, l'AGOA poursuit une vision claire. Aider les pays africains à s'intégrer pleinement à l'économie mondiale en soutenant les réformes, la transparence et la gouvernance. C'est un outil clé pour encourager l'investissement, la croissance durable et la diversification économique. En 2024, 33 pays d'Afrique subsaharienne sont éligibles à l'AGOA. Cette éligibilité est conditionnée au respect de principes démocratiques, de l'état de droit et de l'ouverture économique. Voici les pays actuellement membres: Afrique du Sud, Angola, Bénin, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Cap-Vert, Comores, Côte d'Ivoire, Djibouti, Eswatini, Éthiopie, Gabon, Ghana, Guinée-Bissau, Kenya, Lesotho, Libéria, Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Maurice, Mozambique, Namibie, Niger, Nigeria, République centrafricaine, République du Congo, République démocratique du Congo, Rwanda, Sao Tomé et Principe, Sénégal, Sierra Leone, Tanzanie. Ces pays bénéficient de conditions préférentielles d'accès au marché américain, créant ainsi un climat favorable aux échanges et à l'investissement. L'AGOA autorise l'exportation de plus de 1800 produits en franchise de droits de douane, auxquels s'ajoutent plus de 5000 autres couverts par le système généralisé de préférence, SGP. Les secteurs bénéficiant le plus de cette ouverture sont l'agroalimentaire, le textile habillement, les composants automobiles, les produits miniers et chimiques. En 2024, les exportations des pays d'Afrique subsaharienne vers les États-Unis, sous le régime de l'AGOA, ont totalisé 8 milliards de dollars, enregistrant une baisse de 13% par rapport à 2023. Répartition sectorielle. Pétrole brut, 2 milliards de dollars, 25% du total, avec le Nigeria en tête des fournisseurs. Produits non pétroliers, 6 milliards de dollars, répartis comme suit. Véhicules et composants automobiles, 2,4 milliards de dollars. Textile habillement, 1,2 milliard de dollars. Produits agricoles et alimentaires, 949 millions de dollars. Métaux de base, 711 millions de dollars. Produits chimiques, 250 et 1 million de dollars. 5 pays ont concentré près de 65% des exportations africaines vers les États-Unis. Afrique du Sud, 3,76 milliards de dollars. Kenya, 567 millions de dollars. Madagascar, 345 millions de dollars. République démocratique du Congo, 287 millions de dollars. Côte d'Ivoire, 178 millions de dollars. La RDC se distingue ainsi comme l'un des principaux bénéficiaires de l'AGOA en 2024. L'AGOA demeure un levier essentiel pour le développement économique de l'Afrique subsaharienne, en facilitant l'accès au marché américain et en stimulant la diversification des exportations. Alors que son échéance approche en septembre 2025, les discussions sur son avenir sont cruciales pour maintenir et renforcer les acquis obtenus au cours des 2 dernières décennies.
Nous allons entrer à l'intérieur pour voir comment ça se passe. Thank you, sir.
We're the plan play, and we want better communication between the American people and the African people.
Comme j'étais en train de vous le dire, là je tiens la conférence internationale sur l'AGOA, America First. Comment se place l'Afrique pour répondre des États-Unis? America First, est-ce que l'avenir d'AGOA tiendra toujours? C'est la raison pour laquelle nous sommes venus du Texas, dans Wanjila Connect, ici à Washington DC, au capital, en Paris, de vous présenter ce meeting d'avenir par rapport à l'AGOA. Nous suivons tous, nous aurons avec vous quelques intervenants pour vous expliquer comment se déroule l'avenir de l'AGOA. Cet échange international commercial entre l'Amérique et l'Afrique, suivi président.
The trade development and diplomacy issues that are embedded in President Trump's, Secretary Rubio's, and U.S. Trade Representative Greer's proposals. They put some pretty stark proposals on the table. And we know from just talking to people that it's not, people aren't used to this. You know, they're freaking out about it. Now, do they need to? I don't think so. So let me start with offering a word of congratulations. It's a bit sobering, but when somebody has a 10th anniversary, an annual meeting, that's a decade of service. So I want to congratulate you. This is whether the issue is trade or human rights, anti-corruption, or any of the other qualifiers drawn from AGOA itself. The arduous work of ensuring that fair trade deals actually happen falls to civil society organizations. Governments don't make trade agreements. Civil society organizations do. CSOs are the engines that drive progress. They generate the energy and ideas that drive innovation and make the connections between buyers and sellers, producers and consumers, and most importantly, I think in some of these fraught discussions, they create safe spaces in which opposing factions can get together and talk out serious issues. And then, once they've reached agreement, focus their energies on moving glacially slow government bureaucracies to get something about. In fact, as I'm going to argue in these remarks this morning, free and fair trade between nations is best envisioned as a partnership. Bilateral trade relations must be entered into freely by partners who understand the risks and benefits of close fiduciary relationships and those who have legal capacity and authority to bind themselves. Just as in every partnership, business partners must understand what resources, human and material, each brings to the table, and each partner must trust the other to deal openly and transparently about their limitations and the mutual benefits of the proposed partnership. It really sounds simple, doesn't it? One might think that only naive, pointy-headed academic human rights type like me could come up with a suggestion like this. But I'm going to argue here that all the wailing and gnashing of teeth over President Trump's America First trade policy is, in fact, a simple question of partnership. That would be understandable. The fact that people are upset about it is certainly understandable here in the city of Washington, where practitioners of the dark arts of realpolitik, predict gloom and doom unless their preferred policies and expectations hold sweat. I submit to you, however, that the conventional wisdom here in Washington is not only wrong, I submit to you that it's inhumane. Let me expand. As I mentioned a minute ago, my role in the State Department was to serve as Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labors. From the day I joined the Bureau to the day I left it, I was reminded over and over again that international trade policies like AGOA and human rights agreements, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, have a singular purpose. Their goal is to ensure that individuals, families, communities, and nations have the freedom they need to develop not only their God-given individual abilities, but also the natural and human resources with which their respective lands have been blessed. That's what I call the human dimension of human rights. First, each one of us needs physical security for our communities. We can't do business if you can't walk down the street. We depend on the backbreaking work of the farmer, the herder, the fisherman to feed ourselves and our families. Each of these communities, in turn, depends on the knowledge and skills of all who provide the labor and services on which they depend to ensure a steady and reliable food supply. The hard and dangerous work of miners provides the raw materials and minerals that refineries extract and pass along the supply chains to those who can turn them.
Thank you.
Oui, je ne vais pas être long. Je voulais juste savoir, puisqu'il y a tellement de challenges, il y a aussi des opportunités.
Yeah, I won't be long. I just want to know, as like you said, there are many challenges and opportunities.
Oui, mais merci pour cette séance, puisque c'est pour nous mener vers les opportunités.
And also, thank you for these sessions because it brings us to the opportunities.
Mais mon inquiétude est que, au cas où notre plaidoyer ne passerait pas, quel serait l'avenir pour notre AGOA, surtout pour les pays africains?
The question I have is if after here our advocacy doesn't pass, what's going to be our attitude as African countries, members of AGOA?
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the...
Nous sommes ici au forum de l'AGOA ici à Washington, D.C., où nous sommes en train de parler de l'avenir de l'AGOA par rapport à la vision du président Donald Trump, American First. Est-ce que l'AGOA va continuer ou l'AGOA, c'est la fin de l'AGOA? Comment nous devons, nous Africains, se mettre au niveau, au diapason des aspirations de l'administration du président Trump? Et là, j'ai l'honneur de recevoir pour vous Robert A. Destro, qui est professeur, qui est panéliste avec nous ici à Washington, D.C. au Capitol, pour nous expliquer par rapport à l'AGOA. Hi, sir.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Nice to see you too. Sir, what's happened now for AGOA, for Africa? President Trump said American first. Now, what's happened for AGOA for Africa?
Well, I think he's also saying Africa first. I mean, the countries of Africa are each independent. There's 54 of you, right? There's 50 states here in the United States. So when we start thinking about Africa first, you can't say Africa first. You have to say DRC first, or Botswana first, or South Africa. So every country is responsible for taking care of its own people first. And so if African leaders are as concerned as President Trump is about us, we can do great business together.
Africa wants America. America wants Africa too. What's the solution for the good relationships?
I think just like in a fan, we have to be able. You have to tell people what you want. We have to distinguish between what you want and what you need. And there has to be constant communication. We're not always going to agree. I don't even agree with my sister 50% of the people. So I think it's just communication and really a willingness to be parties.
The new taxations of produce in the new administration Trump, what's happened now for Africa? The produce come from Africa to United States for the new taxation.
Well, I think the president has made it very clear that there doesn't have to be catfish. It says countries need to be part. The Democratic Republic of Congo it's a huge country. It's got talented people. It's got enormous resources. I mean, if we can't do business, then we're crazy. I mean, we're either lazy or crazy. But I have had inquiries from mining companies in China that have said, well, can you help us find American mining companies that would help us extract the mineral because we don't like the way the Chinese are doing this. My reaction is, okay, so there's a possibility. We invest in you and you invest in us. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's very practical.
Sir, my last question. Can you give advice for entrepreneurs of Africa to be connect of the visions of administration term for exchange of African and the US?
Well, I think if you want to look at the easiest thing is to look at the list of all the things that the United States imports from China and say, okay, we could do that. I mean, I have a friend who's doing the same thing in Ukraine. He says, oh, you get these toys from Ukraine, you get these toys from China, you get these candies from China, you get these TVs from China. Well, we'll make them in Ukraine. I mean, it seems to me that it's like, you got to understand your market. You got to know your customer. And it's the same, we need to know you better, and you need to know us better.
My beg, sir, you say Democratic Republic of Congo. Democratic Republic of Congo have a lot of minerals.
Yeah.
Is a good partner for United States?
Absolutely. I mean, we would have to be crazy not to want to view the parts. The question is, how do we protect the environment? How do we protect the workers? I mean, if you take all the categories of AGOA, you just have those, you have that list in your pocket, you pull it out to say, here's where we can make it be.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Nous avons reçu pour vous les propos du professeur Robert A. Destro qui nous a répondu que les Africains devraient se mettre au diapason de la vision du président Donald Trump. L'Afrique a besoin des États-Unis d'Amérique et les États-Unis d'Amérique a besoin de l'Afrique. Comment travailler en partenariat? Cessons les efforts de deux parties parce que l'avenir se construit ensemble. Nous sommes toujours ici au Capitole à Washington, D.C., où nous participons au forum sur l'AGOA. Merci beaucoup de nous suivre. Thank you so much, sir. Deux parties que vous suivez, soyez le bienvenu dans votre magazine. Nous sommes ici à Washington, D.C., plus précisément au Capitole, là où est en train de se tenir la conférence sur l'AGOA. Nous annonçons le panel par panel. Vous avez le tout premier panel. Là, nous avons eu un professeur d'université, le professeur Robert A. qui a expliqué l'importance des échanges entre l'Afrique et les États-Unis d'Amérique. Et suivi d'autres panels et des efforts qu'on est en train de peser par rapport aux éléments très importants de l'Afrique. D'ici, nous sommes en train de comprendre l'avenir qui se joue par rapport aux échanges entre l'Afrique et les États-Unis. Nous sommes dans cette salle au pouvoir suivre, vu donner ces éléments très importants. Les États-Unis d'Amérique ont une vision de la grandeur. Le président Donald Trump parle American First. Qu'est-ce que nous comprenons de cela par rapport aux échanges commerciaux entre l'Afrique et les États-Unis d'Amérique? C'est la raison pour laquelle nous avons fait notre déplacement du Texas pour arriver ici à Washington, D.C., afin de vous donner la bonne information sur les échanges concernant l'AGOA.
In China, for example, it is my view that to effectively respond to America's reciprocity-based policy, Africa must address these shortcomings in order to position itself as a proactive partner with the U.S. To do this, I want to suggest that Africa must strengthen continental integration through AfCFTA, which is Africa's greatest asset in dealing with the world powers. If it can turn the 55 countries into a single market of over 1.5 billion people, after will enhance Africa's bargaining power with the U.S. and other world players as well, build on economies of scale, which will make African products more competitive, attract bigger foreign investments, and reduce vulnerability to unilateral trade conditions by promoting intra-African trade and accelerating tariff harmonization, trade facilitation, and infrastructure integration under AfCFTA will certainly present a unified front to the U.S. or any other power. I want to suggest that there is need to recalibrate the trade relationship with the U.S. beyond AGOA. The AGOA framework, though beneficial to Africa, is non-reciprocal and subject to renewal. The current major changes in U.S. tariff regimes have more or less put a damper on the life of AGOA. Nevertheless, it seems to me that AGOA has been beneficial to both the U.S. and Africa in several ways. In this regard, let me make the following points. AGOA has significantly contributed to job creation in both partner countries, industrialization, and economic diversification in participating countries. For example, exports from AGOA eligible countries in the U.S. increased from $8.2 billion in 2001 to $25 billion in 2008. Sectors like textiles, apparel, and automotive manufacturing blossomed, with countries such as Lesotho, South Africa, Kenya, and Ethiopia taking the lead. Ending AGOA now will greatly harm these developments. Beyond all this, AGOA has helped to strengthen U.S.-Africa relations, having become a diplomatic tool in strengthening U.S.-Africa relations. It also aligns with the U.S. foreign policy goals of promoting economic stability, democratic governance, and regional security. Stopping AGOA could weaken U.S. influence in Africa. At a time, other powers are striving to increase their presence there, EU and China, for example. I believe that reauthorizing AGOA is strategically important given Africa's growing economic potential. The AfCFTA will present new opportunities for regional trade which the U.S. could benefit from. In concluding this section, let me suggest that a window of opportunity is available to take action on AGOA, and we've heard that from presentations from many people from this morning. The window of opportunity is available to take action on AGOA renewal through the 90-day pause for the implementation of the new U.S. tariffs issued by President Trump on 9 April 2025. I will suggest that advantage be taken of this pause to engage with the U.S. administration on the future of AGOA. This is one certain recommendation that should come out of this conference, and I recall that other speakers before now have...
Times if significant Chinese inputs are then coming in through, whether it's through a free trade agreement partner or through a preference program, these are very complicated because supply chains are very complicated. We all well know, but these are things that matter a lot to members of Congress as they look at the programs.
Thank you for the question. There's a lot of interest and excitement about, as you know, sort of the G20 locations are chosen many years in advance. It's not quite clear to me yet how AGOA would fit into the conversation at the G20. But as Josh mentioned his latter point, we can't talk about AGOA in isolation. So I think your question is very, very well timed. That when we think about the G20 agenda and what South Africa wants to elevate as the host country, how does AGOA trade and investment fit into that conversation? I don't know. I'm hoping that there will be U.S. participation across all branches. That's my hope. It's just unclear. It's unclear where things will land. I think also, and sort of embedded in your conversation about the looking at AGOA and the relationship in a more global, in a global perspective, the AFCFTA. And so there's been a lot more conversations surrounding how African countries want, how the AFCFTA will factor into the AGOA conversation and other conversations. Don't have answers, but I think these are all the right questions to ask.
Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you so much. My name is Mary Uwera, and I'm the coordinator for White Democracy Bureau. My question is not a question, it's a compliment, but which will turn into also a question at the end. While we are talking of a win-win culture and making Africa more self-sufficient and more efficient in operation, there is always a challenge of effort on the side of Africa. Investment is excellent when it comes to being thought of, being searched on, but when it goes on the ground, most of investment opportunities fail because of lack of equity, which is purchasing power. With the current administration, how would we also advocate for ways such as a Marshall Plan shaped German to be universities after World War II, and also issues of democracy? Right now, it is state of uncertainty where we have the West of America, which is the voice of democracy, that is not in operation, especially Sub-Saharan Africa, where democracy is still private, is actually step up very many. So when we are talking of democracy being the public good, we have to really fight like it will be that you wouldn't call capitalism, but if it is the exercise. So if the kind had inspection, now that we have USA with us, is it at least considering and it key for Africa in as far as creating a winning culture? I think.
So thank you for your comment and question. I will just admit I don't know the answer as far as what the administration is considering. You fully take all your points as far as the
Sous l'administration Trump, la doctrine America First a marqué une rupture assumée avec le multilatéralisme traditionnel des États-Unis. Cette vision prône une priorisation systématique des intérêts économiques américains, souvent au détriment d'accords commerciaux jugés déséquilibrés ou peu rentables. Dans ce contexte, l'AGOA, accord unilatéral de préférence tarifaire accordé à l'Afrique subsaharienne, pourrait apparaître en décalage avec cette nouvelle approche. En effet, l'AGOA permet à plus de 30 pays africains d'exporter vers les États-Unis sans droit de douane, ce qui, en apparence, va à l'encontre des nouvelles mesures protectionnistes mises en place par Washington. L'instauration de taxes douanières sur certains produits d'importation, notamment l'acier, l'aluminium ou les véhicules, a relancé les débats sur l'équité commerciale et la nécessité, pour les partenaires étrangers, de ne payer leur juste part. Mais au-delà du discours, l'AGOA n'a jamais été formellement remis en cause par l'administration Trump. Pourquoi ? Parce qu'au fond, même sous l'ombre du slogan « America First », l'intérêt stratégique des États-Unis demeure maintenir une relation commerciale et politique stable avec une Afrique en pleine croissance démographique et économique. Le continent africain représentera près de 2,5 milliards d'habitants d'ici 2050, avec une classe moyenne en expansion et des besoins en équipement, en énergie, en agro-industrie. Pour les États-Unis, cela représente un potentiel considérable, non seulement un marché d'exportation, mais aussi un levier d'influence économique face à la Chine, à l'Union européenne ou à la Russie. Les entreprises américaines peuvent tirer profit de l'AGOA en y développant des chaînes de valeur intégrées, notamment dans les secteurs automobiles, textiles et agricoles. En 2024, les exportations vers les États-Unis, sous AGOA, ont atteint 8 milliards de dollars, dont 2,4 milliards pour les composants automobiles et 1,2 milliard pour les textiles, des secteurs qui dynamisent à la fois l'industrie locale africaine et les besoins des consommateurs américains. En somme, l'AGOA peut coexister avec une stratégie America First, à condition de l'adapter aux nouvelles réalités économiques. Plutôt qu'un retrait brutal, il serait plus cohérent d'envisager une restructuration de l'AGOA en un partenariat gagnant-gagnant, avec des objectifs de développement industriel pour l'Afrique et des retours économiques mesurables pour les États-Unis. Ainsi, l'Afrique n'est pas simplement une bénéficiaire. Elle devient un acteur stratégique de l'avenir économique mondial, et l'AGOA, même à l'heure du protectionnisme, reste un outil d'influence géoéconomique majeur que les États-Unis ne peuvent se permettre d'ignorer.
quel est l'avenir de l'AGOA par rapport à l'administration précédente de la fin. Dans ces salles, on est en train de faire comprendre de l'importance qu'il y a entre l'Afrique et les États-Unis d'Amérique. Quel est l'avenir des échanges par rapport à l'Afrique et aux États-Unis? Nous avons vu les nouveaux taxes plannés du président Donald Trump. Est-ce que l'Afrique va se mettre au diapason du besoin des États-Unis d'Amérique en termes de la vision du président Donald Trump? C'est la raison pour laquelle nous sommes ici, dans cette salle. Nous allons encore voir pour pouvoir comprendre comment cela se déroule.
Current administration that you have the US.
Comme vous êtes en train de le suivre, les panélistes sont en train de parler. American First, le président Donald Trump a revu sa politique par rapport aux échanges commerciaux entre l'Afrique et les États-Unis d'Amérique. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous sommes en train de suivre ce panel pour comprendre est-ce que l'AGOA va continuer ou l'AGOA va s'interrompre. Est-ce que les Africains, les agriculteurs africains, ainsi que tous ceux qui sont en Afrique pour entreprendre, pourront se mettre au diapason des États-Unis. Donc, nous sommes en train de suivre ce programme et nous sommes là, venus de Texas, plus précisément Texas à Avril, pour être ici à Washington DC, où se jouent ces enjeux dans l'administration de Trump et nous sommes en train de suivre.
In spite of our appeals for that to be reviewed, the answer was your appeal has not been granted. So I waited patiently until February 10 this year to obtain to go for the interview. And I'm glad to say that what the previous administration did not do, the present administration gave me a 5-year visa. So I think that it is the way God wanted it, and I'm glad that I'm here for this event. I probably would just have participated in receiving the award in 2023. Somebody did it on my behalf, but I'm glad that I'm here, and I'd like to publicly express my appreciation to FDA and to the President in particular for making that possible and for inviting me for this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And you are here with us at another important period in time. When we first met, and that was my first time of us meeting, it was how can the AU engage with the diaspora? That would have been in 2002. And here we are in 2025. We're not talking about, and that was just after AGOA was passed into law in 2000. So AGOA was passed. Then we wanted to see how the diaspora could be an agent of making sure that AGOA succeed. And here we are today talking about, are we going to have a renewal of AGOA? So, things happen for a purpose. And I'm an optimist, and I really think that we may find our way in a better place than we have been. Can we go to the question?
Yeah. En réalité, nous sommes un peu gênés parce que, comme vous le savez, le Cameroun avait été suspendu de ce qui concerne AGOA. Mais en réalité, est-ce que, pour des raisons bien sûr que vous savez tous, mais est-ce que c'était la faute des opérateurs économiques parce qu'eux-mêmes aussi subissent en réalité la gouvernance et tout le reste? Alors, est-ce qu'il n'y a pas possibilité que, à travers travers notre organisation, qu'on puisse faire un lobbying qui peut permettre, bien sûr, de remettre le Cameroun dans cette arène de l'AGOA.
Look like the current environment with the new tariff that we are talking about. What do you think in terms of percentage the chance for AGOA to be renewed? Or if AGOA is renewed, it's not, I would say, it's not renewed. Is there any inside intelligence about what the U.S. administration might instead do to maintain trade relations between U.S. and Africa? Thank you.
I wanted to share this before we leave. This information is on the board here, and I also hope is on our website. I think this is important information because it's from the USITC, and we have some USITC staff here with us. And it shows us goods in trade between the United States and Sub-Saharan Africa from 2004 to 2023. Now, let me share with you, and as data is up there, I hope everyone can see it, but I will be able to, because we're going now to the last session, so where we're going to talk about our recommendations. In 2004, total goods trade, according to this information, and I believe in this information because the information was properly collected, was $44.4 billion. That was 2004. In 2023, the total goods trade between the United States and Sub-Saharan Africa, 20 years after, is $47.5 billion. And all this time, we've had AGOA. U.S. exports to the United States in 2004 was $8.6 billion. That was 2004. U.S. exports to Africa, based on this data, is $18.2 billion over 20 years. We went up, but if we look at the margin, the aggregate, it is not too much. Let us look at U.S. imports. U.S. imports. We've talked about U.S. exports, U.S. imports coming from Africa. U.S. imports in 2004 was $35.9 billion. That is what came here from Africa, some sub-Saharan Africa. Now, U.S. import in 2023 was $29.3 billion. It went down. Why? We had the market actions. Now, let us look at our trade balance. In 2024, it was minus $27.3 billion. Now, in 2023, it's gone down to $11.1 billion. Not because the volume went up, but because everything went down. I think these are very important data that we must take a look at. Is there an opportunity where we could do better than this, even with a renewal of AGOA? I think that's the challenge that we need to deal with, and that's what we need to work with the administration and the 119th Congress to see how, and with all of the stakeholders and all of the countries in Africa, to see how do we lift these up and create jobs. Let me share with you, again, here we go. This is AGOA crude oil imports, because as all of us know, crude oil is included. If we'll take a look at AGOA crude oil imports, including the GSP, in 2004 is $22.2 billion. If we look at 2023, it's $4.2 billion. We had gone from 22.2 billion to 4.2 billion. And we had AGOA. So these are the questions that I think in the next session we need to talk about. We want AGOA to be renewed, but we have to look for a way to make sure that is more effective. Let's take a look at AGOA apparel imports. In 2004, it was $1.6 billion. In 2023, it's $1.1 billion. Now, I'm showing you the extreme, and please, the intention is not to misrepresent information, because within that period, we have seen it go up. But if we just take these two numbers here, we will see why this might be a timely meeting for us to look at these numbers and to be able to see what can we do with the new administration, with the 119th Congress, where we can start seriously talk about creating jobs. I want to share another one here with you, which is U.S. investment in Africa. And I think Ambassador Shinkaiye talked about Prosper Africa and some of the things that has been done. Now, in between these years, there's fluctuation. I do not work, and this information is available. So I think if we take a look at it from an objective point of view, we can live here with our own conviction of what needs to be done. Now, U.S. investment in sub-Saharan Africa in 2004 was $11.9 billion. Now, it went up, but U.S. investment in 2022 is $31.6 billion. So we can see that the investment is going up, even though there's fluctuation. Now, if we look at sub-Saharan investment also here in the United States, it was $2.4 billion in 2004, but now is $11 billion. So we have seen U.S. investment here also go up. So how do we use this data to guide us, like Robert Destro said in his statement? Somebody had asked him, how can America help us? And he told him, tell America, how can you help America? So the America First approach could help us to address some of this data where we're creating jobs. So I don't think this should be an approach of confrontation. I think it should be an approach of negotiation. Negotiation. Let us negotiate without fear and to be honest in our purpose for the negotiation. I wanted to present this before I will thank Ambassador Shinkaiye for joining us. It's been a long day. He came all the way.
L'AGOA, c'est cette facilité d'entrée des biens africains faite par les agriculteurs, des entrepreneurs, des créateurs pour pouvoir venir écouler leurs produits aux États-Unis. Est-ce que cela va continuer?
Some of these issues. So what can we do to assist as civil society, please?
Yeah. So it seems to me that to be expedient, as I think you're saying, is that we need champions on Capitol Hill, a working group of champions who are going to take our recommendations and be our champions and talk to both sides of the aisle, and particularly to target the Republican side, given we have a Republican administration at the executive levels and dominating in the Congress. So I would say we need to identify at least 3 or 4 on both sides of the aisle, focus on them, look at the ones who've been with us before, and have them be our key champions on Capitol Hill and with the executive branch. And they work with the 2 that were here today to make sure there is an echo chamber that also tells them we're working with the African Union. We're working with whoever we want to identify. But have a one-pager. It's very clear, it's very concise, but go further. Once we identify who they are, go to their districts. The districts of the champions who will be a part of our champion group, and make sure they get whatever it is our talking points are. And we mobilize at both the grassroots and at the national levels for our agenda. I think a memo of some sort, and then someone who's going to meet with each one of these champions might be a more efficient way to think about some things.
I think that's a really expedient way to move forward, and I think it has to be bipartisan, and I think some members of Congress can definitely assist in being able to present our ask.
De partout où vous nous avez suivis, nous vous remercions parce que vous étiez nombreux à suivre ce programme. Nous étions à la 10e conférence de printemps du réseau de l'AGOA au Capitole à Washington, D.C. Vous avez suivi les échanges sur l'avenir de l'AGOA. L'avenir de la plateforme de l'AGOA dépendra des efforts de chaque partie, la partie américaine et la partie africaine. Le but est que chacun puisse se retrouver dans cette zone d'opportunité qui est l'AGOA. De partout, nous avez suivi. Merci de rester branchés à nos programmes. Que Dieu vous bénisse. À la prochaine. Ciao.